What's up, everybody? Gavin here with NBA Real Talk. I'm here with Mr. Supermariohoops24, one of the best YouTubers on NBA content that we have here on the interweb. So we're going to talk about a very interesting topic today, one that's near and dear to my heart, and that's the idea of a 4-point line in the NBA. And we're basically going to discuss whether we think that's a good idea and get into my ideas about how to make a 4-point shot and maybe even a 5-point shot incorporated into NBA basketball. So first, I'll start off by asking, do you think that there's any place for a 4-point line in general in the NBA? Do you want to see them put a new piece of tape, 4 or 5 feet above the 3-point line, that you get a 4-point zone, a 3-point zone, then the 2-point zone? You interested in any of that? What do you think?
What I will say is I think personally for me, I'm traditional. So I feel like adding a 4-point line, I probably would not, although it is an interesting concept. I think I don't know if maybe a 4-point line would be necessary too, but I'm just thinking about how that would influence the corner shots. You know what I mean? Because there's not much space there. But I don't know. I
have a corner shot because
it'd have to be just further back, kind of
basically a lot more or less halfway or a third of the way between the 3-point and half court, I'm guessing.
Yeah, and to me, that feels...
Logo, it probably come across where the logo is, basically, where they'd probably put it.
And to me, that feels a little weird, and I will say, too, the mid-range was the bread and butter for so many years with guys like Jordan and Gervin and Alex English, and, there still is guys sure, your guy, DeMar DeRozan, but at the same point, it's more people have started to take less mid-ranges because of the 3. So I'm thinking if there's a 4-point shot, people are going to be taking drives to the basket and probably the 4-point shots, unless it is in the corner, then it would be a 3. So it's I don't know how I feel about that. You know what I mean? So
I also feel there's an interesting thing here too. If they had a 4-point line, kind of like we're discussing, then do you also perhaps change the 3-point line, something they've talked about doing anyway, where it just ends at the break? You know what I mean? Where it doesn't actually have a corner 3 anymore. Because the corner 3 is great for, every sport is always trying to run up the score, basically, right? So the corner 3 is great because it's the shortest 3-point shot. But it's just this little space, and they've talked a bunch of times about getting rid of that space. I think also because it's just how often guys end up stepping out of bounds.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Either they just expanded the court 6 inches or whatever they have to do.
That's a bigger problem lately than ever.
Yeah. So, I basically agree with you. It's kind of like advanced stats might take over the game even further than they already have. I'm personally not that interested in seeing guys get extra points for a shot they're already hitting. How do you feel about that? To me, it's just one of those things where it's so you're going to take a shot guys are already taking and just make it worth more now.
Yeah.
I'm not super advanced on my basketball history, but I believe guys were shooting from further out back in the day when they were starting to add in the 3-point line, but it was more of a circus shot that they added to the game to just get guys out there to see if they'd want to shoot it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's because guys were already shooting out there all the time.
Yeah, and most of it back then too is even back then, defenses were played different. I think there wasn't a defensive 3-second violation till I think MJ's first year with the Wizards or something like that. So it's you think about prior to that, it's okay, or even prior to the ABA when the 3-point line eventually came over, it's okay, well, there was everything was worth 2 points. Every basket was worth 2. And then your big men would stay kind of in the paint. So it's you'd maybe have a more free opportunity to shoot from further. But at the same time, a lot of people weren't practicing that because it's what's the point when I could shoot from 10, 15 feet and get the same amount of points as from 20, 25 feet. And then they took advantage of that. There are some players like Jerry West or Oscar Robertson or Pete Maravich, those guys shot from deep in days prior to the 3-point line, but then the 3-point line came introduced, and I feel now it's a little bit different the way we view scorers as well, because you look at Steph Curry, for example, who's obviously anyways one of the greatest scorers ever, definitely the greatest shooter ever, but maybe averages, I think for his career it's around 24 points a game. And then say Pete Maravich or something was averaging roughly 25 or so a game, but he also played most of his career before the three-point shot. He wasn't taking as many three-point shots as then. So, like, who's to say he could have averaged like 30 a game? And I feel like you said, it's kind of weird, and like it influences the stats in a weird way. So if there's a 4-point shot, and I mean, I'm sure the first name that comes to mind for that is Damian Lillard right now, just because he shoots like they call him Logo Lillard, right? So like he could almost elevate his scoring average to, like, for a career, like 29 points a game, which I think would be like the third highest ever, like even before he's done right now. But people are gonna say like, oh, he's a better scorer than this guy and that guy and that guy. But you know, it's kind of different, because if he's taking just more shots from further, like that's a great way to score, of course. But it's also like, how many shots are you taking from there, as opposed to if someone's way more efficient at the 2-point shot, like a mid-range or a 3-pointer or whatever. So I don't know. I feel like it would create interesting discussions. I don't know if they don't need to add it, but
they don't need to.
Yeah, it would just make, I feel like it could make the 3-point line irrelevant, if that makes sense.
I mean, so we'll get into now. I think what I think they should do instead would actually make the game better, because the main thing is I just don't see how the 4-point line really makes the game better. Whereas I think if someone makes a shot from beyond half court line, that should be worth 4 points. And I think we could even discuss the idea that if you shoot it from inside your own 3-point line or your own key or something like that, that it's 5 points. And I think that's interesting, because it would make the end of games so much more interesting when, you know, they got to inbound the ball. They've got no timeouts left, but you kind of got to play defense, you know, because you're looking for that 5-point shot. The only potential flaw I see with it is kind of like foul baiting type stuff. Because it's like have a 4 and a 5-point shot, and regardless of whether they're talking about my idea or just an NBA 4-point line, I think the first thought that comes to myself, so if the guy shoot back there, does he get four free throws? You know what I mean? I was like, do we give 5 free throws for getting fouled on a full court heave or something like that? I mean, it's interesting. That's a lot of,
I think they'd probably have to like change the rules where it's like, if you're losing within the last minute and you foul like in the backcourt and it's something like an intentional foul or something, like then like maybe you get like 3 free throws instead. Because like I think there are players that I wouldn't put it past them, whether it's Dame or Steph Curry or Trae Young or whoever, like that could probably hit a behind half court shot. I mean, Curry shoots a lot of them, Dame shoots a lot of them, so I wouldn't put it past those guys to shoot it at the end. But like you said, like let's say you're up by 2 and you have the ball and you get fouled. Well, if you just take care of business, naturally you'd think, okay, like we're good. This game's under control. If there's like a couple seconds left, and then Curry comes down and hits a half court shot, 4 points, overtime, and then like let's say you lose. I think I don't think they really need to accommodate like if they could put the 5-point shot in for sure, but I don't know if they need to like switch up the free throw rule like to accommodate that, because let's face it, no one's gonna have enough touch to consistently make a 5-point shot if it's in their own 3-point line.
And here's actually, because I was thinking about this, I said, no, it does make this interesting. So if we say that there's a maximum of 2 or 3 free throws, whatever, because that's the maximum you can get right now. Well, that you can get 2 or 3 free throws out of something, an NBA play. Well, let's say a team is scared. A team's up 5. They're scared of the Steph Curry full court heave. They foul him. Steph goes and hits, because they'd rather give Steph 3 points, you know what I mean, than risk the full court heave and try to get the ball. So maybe that drags the game out a little more, obviously. But I mean, this is kind of what we watch basketball for in a lot of ways, is those last 2 minutes where this is a big part of it, and we've seen impossible things happen. And to put the team that's up in a position where it's in their best interest to foul the team that's behind, you know, let them actually get closer. I mean, it's just it creates a lot of interesting potential, right, for interesting strategy in games. No, I definitely see that. And I guess like I think like that's
That's probably a valid point, because I wasn't thinking of it from the perspective of like intentionally fouling the team that's losing to keep them from doing that. But
Yeah.
I mean, that does make sense. I don't know. I feel like they still would have to make the intentional foul in the last minute or so like 3 free throws then, like to make it not as, I guess, like maybe not as dramatic for the team that's winning. But I guess it could also backfire. So I don't know. I'm just spitballing, really.
I think it's at least worth experimenting with the G League, because it's only going to come up a few times. You know what I mean? There's only going to be a few scenarios. It's like I remember when the NHL first incorporated a shootout. You know, they just at the end of the exhibition games in the beginning, they just they had a shootout no matter what the score was, just to get guys to see how it works, see if they're comfortable with it. I think try this stuff out in the G League, because there's only going to be certain scenarios where you're down 5 with 3 seconds left, time, you know, in balling in your own end. See what happens. You know what I mean? Extend the game. You know what I mean? It's just it's an interesting concept, and I think it's worth trying out.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. Maybe the G League is where it starts. I don't know.
Yeah. All right. So we're in agreement on that. I think we pretty much covered that topic. Move on to the next one. So this is Gavin, NBA Real Talk, signing out. Super Mario Hoops 24. And we'll talk to you guys next time.
See you.